How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Thursday night. It is the Earthmaster out here, August 22nd, 2024, about 9:33 p.m. California time. Latest activity here on the globe shows a 3.5, well north here of Iceland and north of Greenland, where we're seeing the ongoing eruption activity there across Iceland. We'll check in on that in a little bit. We're seeing some elevated earthquake activity in this region following the eruption, which is a little rare. It's supposed to be vice versa. So we'll check that out here in just a minute. I do want to cover some earthquake activity down in Australia, just outside of Sydney. This earthquake coming in as a 4.8 earthquake, 6 miles here below the surface, north of Sydney here, about, maybe about 50 miles or so. This earthquake was felt over a broad area down here, near this region as well, near the epicenter. Fairly shallow earthquake, and to be quite frank here, quite rare to see an earthquake of this magnitude out here. So let's take a look here at historical data, at least according to the USGS. Now this is their earthquake catalog book here, or at least website, showing earthquake activity since records have began for the USGS. Shows some earthquake activity 4.5 and above. With the 4.6 being here, wow, where's our most recent earthquake? Hold on a second here. That's a little odd. Got a 4.8 today, but it's not showing up in the catalog book yet. I put 4.5 and above, so it is there though. Notice the location here, north of Sydney, within this area, Dinman, Australia. So it looks like they haven't included that in their history here. But in the same region, we did see a 5.3 back in 1994. Near Newcastle, a 5.4 back in that's kind of interesting. Back in 1989. Aren't those the years that we had the San Francisco earthquake and then the Loma Prieta earthquake there in California? Interesting. They did see a 4.6 a little bit further south here back in 2003, and then a 5.5 1973. So earthquake activity specifically in this region, a little rare when it comes to the earthquake activity above 4.5. So as you can see, 4.6, the last one here, somewhat in the region. Well, just about, has it really been 20 years? Oh my gosh. 2003 was over 20 years ago. Yikes, that's scary. Where have I been? So a little bit of earthquake activity out there, shaking things up outside of Sydney. We'll continue to keep an eye on things here. Getting some unusual activity out here across the globe here recently, so we'll definitely watch a couple certain areas. Let's go over to Iceland here. I do want to cover that as well. For the earthquake activity, because we've noticed here a little unusual sequence of earthquake activity following an eruption. Now, we've seen a huge major increase in earthquake activity around the area of magma activity as far as the current ongoing eruption. By the way, let me show you the current view here, okay? This is the live from Iceland.is site, where we have a fairly lengthy fissure that popped up here, opened up, spewing out fountains of lava here. It's been a few hours since this stirred up, and there's numerous views out here. This is a little bit broader view, fairly lengthy. It's hard to tell exactly how long this fissure event is. We'll check out the latest update here in a minute on the Icelandic Met Office. But something I want to point out here is the unusual amount of earthquake activity following the eruption. Now, that is a little odd because compared to the last few eruptions we've seen here since November of last year, we've seen about 5 or 6 of them, is that there's normally I'd say maybe that's a lot of earthquake activity, but maybe about half of this amount of earthquake activity just prior to the eruption. Once that eruption takes place, that breakthrough to the surface. Then, obviously, it's just a free flow of magma, right? Through the surface with fountaining going on there, lava fields and whatnot. But we've seen a major increase in earthquake activity following the eruption, which is a little rare. Even a 4.1 out here stirring things up. This earthquake here, that 4.1, I think was before the eruption. But look at all the earthquake activity, even stretching down a little bit further south here of the area. Let me look here real quick here, because last time I checked, the eruption was just right here east of Slingerfell, but this earthquake activity extends way north of that area. Let me let's go over here real quick and check out the latest update here from the Icelandic Met Office, because this is definitely a developing situation out there. This was put out tomorrow. They are in the future, somewhat. They're in the time zone. August 23rd. It's still the 22nd here. Looks like about a 4-kilometer long fissure at the brunt of the activity. That is a spectacular view. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that is that's a big one, and it's very photogenic there. The duration of the eruption has remained unchanged for the last hour. This was put out at 01 local time there to Iceland on the 23rd, which is my tomorrow. Seismic activity now remains fairly steady and is most active at the northern end of the fissure. Therefore, it is unlikely that an eruption will occur further south. Well, yeah. It cannot be ruled out, though, that the eruption can extend further to the north. So we got major elevated earthquake activity north of our fissure line, which is supposedly right about here to the east of the Slingerfell region. The lava flow continues to the east and to the west towards the area of this region. There's no lava flow to the south towards Grindavik. So, the fissure now extends as far north as the fissure that opened during the eruption in December of last year. That's good, right? We want it going north, otherwise south here could involve some infrastructure here underneath the area of Grindavik, the Blue Lagoon, the power plant over here, the Svartsengi power plant. So we've seen quite a bit of inflation out here since the last eruption, and more so in terms of the volume of magma in this area than any other time previous to the previous eruptions there. So obviously there's more volume, I think, in terms of the potential for further eruptions up here northward, like they're stating. Look at that big time elevated earthquake activity here north, and a lot of this has been ongoing here following the eruption. So yeah, we could see some further ripping, so to speak, here of the land and further eruptive activity to the north. That's a lengthy amount here, but that is a lot of earthquake activity. 574 earthquakes here just in the last 12 hours. Goodness. And it's all shooting northward. There's a lot more at stake here in terms of further activity in the near future across this area. So we'll continue to watch that. But it looks like for now we have roughly about a 4-kilometer long fissure. This was at the brunt of the activity as far as the height of the lava fountaining. But goodness, I don't think it's going to stop there. I think we're going to see that extend further north here in a big fashion. So we'll continue to watch that through the evening and provide an update tomorrow morning on this activity, because this earthquake movement, goodness, that is a lot of activity well north here of the, well, that's 300 meters. 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer is going to be down here in the bottom. So we got about a 4-kilometer long length here, which is roughly to the east of Slingerfell, which is right here. So our fissure event should be roughly about here in this area. But man, look at that northward. There's a lot going on here. So Why is there elevated earthquake activity? That means that we're seeing a further push up here of magma, and we could see further ripping here of the land northward. Better northward than south, that's for sure. So we'll cover that and more tomorrow morning. But if you want to see the latest here in terms of the live view from Iceland, just go over to the livefromiceland.is site. They got many different webcam views here, and that's kind of a close-up view here of the current ongoing activity. It looks like it's died down a little bit here, but don't let that fool you. Of course, we've got the magma flow going out there, or the lava flow. The lava fields creating new land here out in Iceland. All right, let's see what else is going on here. Goodness, a lot going on as far as volcanic activity goes. What about Hawaii? Are we looking at any eruption here as well? Not yet. But still seeing a little bit of movement down southeast here of the Kilauea volcano. Following that 4.7 earlier today, we've seen a swarm of activity around the region, roughly at about the same depth. Although, if you look here, this 4.7 originally 4 miles below the surface. Earthquake activity somewhat getting shallower following that 4.7. So things could be heating up out here across this area of the Big Island as well. In the soon-to-be future, near future, I should say. Let's go over here to the latest update here from the USGS. I'm going to refresh this, make sure I got it going on here. And let's check out the seismograph stations here, see what we have. Earthquake activity here somewhat died down following that 4-pointer earlier this morning. As you can see here, not a whole lot popping up here, but again, don't let your guard down out here if you're in these in this region here. I think we're at a state here where we'll see something happen soon enough here. We've seen a couple different magma intrusions here recently. If we can go back here to the last month, there's an earthquake there on my app. Let me see what we got going on here. Texas, we'll cover that here in a minute. Another earthquake out in Texas coming in. Magma intrusion out there. You can see that previous intrusion from the summit off to the upper east rift zone back in the end of July. Since then, we've been going up. Now we got another intrusion going on here. So obviously, pressure is building out here across this area of the upper east rift zone, the middle east rift zone, and it's just stuck down here as far as the pressurization goes here. Not breaking through to the surface. But we should see something here pretty soon, whether in a fissure event take place or maybe a further migration of magma through the area down to the lower east rift zone where we've seen previous eruptions there back in 2018. Again, it's I don't have a crystal ball, so we don't know exactly when it's going to take place or what's going to happen. Texas rocking and rolling out here tonight. I think we had a 4-pointer out there, but looks like they downgraded that to a 3.9. Let's keep it under 4.0, right? Out there, outside of Pecos, Texas. You guys know what's out there besides desert? Well, there's a whole bunch of these oil pumping operations out here, and these beautiful swimming pools for the hardworking oil field folks there. Just kidding. Yeah, I wouldn't go swimming in these ponds out here. These are wastewater disposal ponds, and there's a whole process involved here of injecting this stuff way down below, and that I don't know exactly, but it does create earthquake activity, and there's a lot of these oil fields out here in wastewater disposal ponds. So this area is it's a big one for earthquake activity. Let me show you guys the last 30 days. Although it's been somewhat light, I watch these maps every single day, every single hour of my life, and 322 earthquakes out here in the last 30 days. I've seen it up here in the thousands on a 30-day period. So this is generally light for 322 earthquakes out here. So it does look like things are starting to pick up, though, with this elevated activity. Just outside of Pecos, Texas, with a 3.9. And a more recent 3.2 out here. And you guys want to bet? See what's out here? $20. I'll bet you guys something. Let's zoom in. What do you guys see out there? A checkerboard? Checkers? You want to play checkers out here? Probably not. I've been through this area numerous times, and there's nothing but oil fields out here in fracking operations, wastewater disposal ponds, and that's all that's out there. There's oil fields galore out here in the Permian Basin, western Texas area. Goodness. So we're seeing all that area get hit here, and that is due to increasing pressure out here against the North American plate. Continue to keep an eye there on Southern California. We kind of missed California here, so let's go ahead and zoom in, see what we got. Bakersfield seeing a little amping up here of earthquake activity just outside of Bakersfield. This is a region that's seen that five-pointer here a couple weeks back now, right? You guys want to get a total tally? Let's see what we got here. We're actually over 700 earthquakes out here following that 5-pointer a couple weeks back. 5.2 back on the 6th of August here. That's a lot of earthquake activity. I don't think we're done yet. This is on a unknown fault system out here. Unknown. Off of any known fault system, so it's a little rare to see this type of earthquake activity in this region. Someone mentioned that there's some oil fields out here. Let's see what we got. Oh yeah. Could be weak areas of the crust. These are some what looks like some oil fields out here. Some type of wastewater ponds out here in this area, similar to Texas, but California style. And you can see them checkered all throughout the map out here. So this may act as a weak area of the crust, getting in on a lot of pressurization out here recently. But of course, seeing that just leads me to believe a lot. And you put together all this other earthquake activity recently around the Ridgecrest, Los Angeles, down here around the Salton Sea, indicates a pressurization against this area of the Southern California region. So obviously this is a time to be on guard for a big one. There is a couple earthquakes here on the San Andreas Fault itself, and that is the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault, where an 8.1 earthquake will strike one day. We got looks like about 4 earthquakes here roughly within a short time of each other. Near Pear Blossom, California. Is there a lot of pears out there? Let's zoom in and see what we got out there. Is this a pear field? It doesn't look like it. I'm not for sure why it's called Pear Blossom, but it is. And this is a very sensitive area between two major plates out here. This has been building up steam out here for quite a few years, over 300 years. Built up steam out here across the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. So a big one is no doubt in the near future. That's a promise. The question is, when is it going to strike? And no one's going to tell you the next big earthquake's going to strike. Yeah, Friday, December 21st. No, that's not going to happen. I can guarantee you. But there is going to be a big one out here soon enough. So we'll continue to keep an eye here on this area of Southern California with this elevated movement, elevated increasing activity here across the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. The Puente Hills Thrust Fault that everyone's been hearing about, little 1.4, nothing big. This area, of course, seen a 4.4 and a handful of some other smaller quakes out here in the last 30 days. Of course, this area of the Puente Hills Thrust Fault is more dangerous for Los Angeles than, say, in 8.1 over here along the San Andreas Fault, and that's due to proximity of the Puente Hills Thrust Fault underneath the Los Angeles area, and of course some suburbs out here. 7.5 earthquake is very capable out here against the Thrust Hills Fault. And this area, following the 4.4, seen about, what do we got? About 35 earthquakes here in the last 30 days. A considerably smaller number than up north around the Bakersfield area. But either way, as I mentioned, you put the activity here, around Los Angeles. We've seen a swarm down south here. You put all this area into consideration here, and it leads me to believe that it's tight. We got a lot of tension building up out here against this area. And that's not what you want to see against a plate boundary that's well overdue for a big earthquake. I've been hearing about this since I was a kid, right? This area is overdue for a big one, and that's been a little while. I'm not going to give out my age here, but it's been a little while. So keep an eye there on SoCal. I feel for the folks down there. Eventually it's going to be a big one. The best thing to do is be prepared and make sure you have a plan. 3.0 out here in the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Let's take a look here at the Cascadia tremor, see what's going on here real quick. Continues. Goodness, we got 717 epicenters of tremor. That is a big time elevated event here across. Now it's breaking up here. We got two separate areas. Hold on a second here. Let's go back here and see what we got from yesterday. So this was the 21st. Let's see what we got on the 20th. Okay, so it looks like it's been consistent here within two separate areas underneath this region of the Cascadia subduction zone. But as I mentioned last night here, we haven't really seen any tremor activity here since about the end of 2022, October of 2022. I think if I remember right, is the last big time tremor event out here. So it's been almost 2 years now. So this area is starting to catch up, while other areas down south and more recent, we've had a few out here in Central Oregon recently as well. Not central, but the central coast out here. Of tremor activity. And this is not volcanic activity or earthquake activity. This is tremor activity that occurs down into the subduction zone there, about 35 to 45 kilometers down below the locked area. The locked area that builds up steam here for the 9.0 or greater quake one day. Well, historically it's happened numerous times out here. How do they know? They've done tsunami deposit studies. They've seen tsunami deposits well inland here into the Oregon area and other regions around Washington and Northern California. And sediments, right? They leave traces. So a 9.0 obviously possible out here across the Cascadia. And the question I'd like to know here, and I think a lot of folks would like to know as well, is what happened prior to that 1900 or 1700 earthquake? Was there massive amounts of tremor activity up in Oregon, Washington? Maybe there was no tremor activity for a month, and then a big one hit. That's a good question. Tremor activity is an excellent study here into predicting the next big earthquake activity here across the Cascadia. I don't think we're going to know when it hits this go around, but after it does, we'll have all this data to go back and look on and say, wow, yeah, there was elevated tremor activity here for months at a time across a wide swath here of the Pacific Northwest, and then the big one hit. Or maybe there wasn't. You know, it's tremor activity fairly new, but obviously when you think about it, the plates here subducting, tremor activity is a slow vibrational frequency rub, so to speak, between the two plates that occurs downstream of the locked area. So when that occurs, obviously we know that steam and strain here is building up at the locked areas. It makes sense. So when there's elevated tremor activity, that means that there's a higher percentage here of the earthquake activity taking place across the Cascadia. And it's been known here that supposedly, at least according to geologists, that we don't see some 5s and 4s pop off before a big one, that it just goes all of a sudden. So there's really not much to go on in terms of studying prior to any big earthquake activity, aside from the GPS coordinates out here, which shows that the land is elevating slowly over time. Obviously, this land will drop when a big earthquake happens, and then, of course, tsunami comes over. So we got the GPS possibilities there to monitor, and then the tremor activity. And then, hopefully we can let people know that there's a big one coming in the future. But that's, average intervals out here run between 250 and 500 years for a big earthquake. So it could happen anytime. It's been 324 years. So again, no crystal ball. We don't know exactly when it's going to happen, but I do like to pay attention to the tremor, as that I feel is key to determining when the next big earthquake will strike out here. And there was a period of very quietness from about the end of 2022 here up in this area up to about back in May. We've seen some elevated tremor activity, mostly at the southern end of the Cascadia, and then more recently here across the Washington area towards the north central area of the Cascadia. But you look back here over time since 2009, and it's been a fairly new study here. It's been increasing slowly but surely. All right, let's see what else we got here. Alaska seeing a little earthquake activity way up along the Aleutian Trench. This earthquake movement just prior to the subduction zone here, 14 miles deep for a 4.4 early this morning and a 3.4. Nothing else yet since early this morning. That was super early this morning. But normally a lot of activity prior to the subduction zone indicates quite a bit of strain out here against this region. But not seeing anything else throughout the day, but we'll continue to keep an eye on it. Let's see what else we got. There's a little spike of an earthquake outside of Mount St. Helens. Really nothing big. All the volcanoes here pretty quiet. Yellowstone National Park, nothing showing up there. So let's just double check, see what's going on. Look at all that activity there. Is that a new earthquake coming in? Goodness. Hold on a second there. Is that another 4-pointer coming in right now? You guys see that? Oh, but that's, hold on a second here. Wow. 4.3, 4.0. That's weird when oh, okay, I see. That scared me a little bit. I thought that was another 4-pointer. Okay. Wow. I was going to say, something's brewing out here. Either way, there's definitely a lot of earthquake activity brewing. Man, approaching 600 earthquakes here. And this is a lot of this activity following the eruption, which is quite rare to see earthquake activity continue following an eruption, because normally magma below the surface is creating pressurization, and then you get the earthquake activity. Once it breaks through the fissure activity, it's a free flow event, and then magma or the earthquake activity tends to calm down. But in this case recently, it's elevated. So yeah, we'll see something more northward. That scared me a little bit. I seen a 4.3 up here, but that's a depth of a 1.3. All right. Where was I? Yellowstone. Let's see what's going on out there in Yellowstone National Park. That is an area of extreme quietness right now. Not a whole lot going on. We haven't seen any major earthquake swarm out there in a long time, or any type of earthquake swarm. A little rare quake out here in Georgia earlier this morning, a 2.4 outside of the Hinesville area, shaking things up out here. Let's see what else we got here for worldwide activity. Goodness, oh man, look at this. 5.5 way down south here, south of South Africa, on the plate boundary out here, a fracture zone. Let's see, nothing coming in from the USGS map yet. Oh, I spoke that one right into existence. Goodness, you ever do that? You ever speak about something here and oh yeah. So yeah, you speak stuff into existence here, and that kind of looks like what I just did right now with that 5.5. That is on a fracture zone out here. It does look like a divergent boundary activity. Notice the ridges out here in the oceanic crust, indicating a separation here of the seafloor. Goodness, got a little bit of unusual activity out here across a couple different regions. Australia being one. A lot of activity up in Iceland. Hawaii, goodness. See what else we got. New Zealand out here, just sitting pretty out there in the quiet zone. That's definitely an area I feel like we should watch for some further movement in terms of larger scale potential. Let's take a look here real quick at New Zealand. I want to go 5.0 and above. I'm going to utilize the USGS map here since about 2020, just the year 2000, and kind of see what we got here for New Zealand. I know they've seen some activity here a few years back outside of Christchurch, but we got the Hikurangi subduction zone that sits just off the east coast there of North Island, and they could throw off some big earthquakes. 5.1 back here in January. That is just at the surface level there of the Cascadia, of the Hikurangi, which sits offshore here. 5.5. These are all somewhat minimal earthquakes here, or moderate to minimal. 5.7 back in 2022. That one's deep though. Look at that. Almost 200 kilometers deep here, and that's a major subduction zone that sits offshore here. So obviously all these deeper quakes indicating some strain building up there for the big earthquake one day. Another deep one here, 219 kilometers deep for 5.2, 2021. A lot of fives here historically. The last somewhat bigger one there, and even that one's a super deep earthquake. 6.1 underneath this area, subduction zone. Gotta remember, gotta watch this, right? Getting a lot of deeper activity here throughout the years, but no major adjustment up here across the Hikurangi. Gisborne area, seen that 6.6, 2007. That is just upshore here, upstream of the Hikurangi, which sits right here. That almost looks like it's right on it, but this area can see a mega quake. I'm talking about above an 8, similar to the Cascadia, and it's been a couple hundred years as well. But let's see what we got here for the largest magnitude since 2020. I think it's going to be that, well, 7.8. That's down south here, off of the. That's definitely not associated with the Hikurangi. That's a little bit further south. North of Christchurch there, 2016. Yeah, that was a big one. 2009, a little bit further south here, way south of the plate boundary. 2009 for that 7.8. But the Alpine Fault here, definitely capable of producing some larger quake activity, and it's been awfully quiet. So similar to California, there's many areas here that are well overdue for some bigger activity across New Zealand. And I can't help but wonder if the recent activity we've seen north and if you go back the last couple months here south of New Zealand, we've seen a lot of earthquake activity, and more recently earthquake activity somewhat elevated in Australia, these intraplate earthquakes, but only minimal activity here across the plate boundary of New Zealand. So eventually this region has to catch up, right? It makes sense. It's got to adjust according to plate tectonics out here. So definitely keep an eye on things. Numerous areas out here to watch for sure. Just got to be prepared. Let's check out space weather activity. Anything major going on? No. Negative. A C3.3. Wow. Not a big deal. Not looking at any major roars in the forecast for now, folks. And the overall threat has dropped for flaring activity, and I figured that would happen because of 3796 here, showing a little bit of separation here between the main core. But I've noticed this area over here showing a little bit of amplification, so we'll see what happens. But looks like the flare threat level has dropped for now. Still somewhat of an elevated chance there for some M-flare activity, 55% chance there, 10% for X-flare, C-flare around 99% chance, but we're continuously flaring with C-flare activity. Let's see what happened here. There we go. There's our latest M-flare. Not a big deal. All right, let's check out here the potential for tropical activity across Hawaii. Let's go over here and check out. Well, that's let's see. This is Hurricane Gilma. Beautiful shear type hurricane, looking pretty strong there. Let's check out a couple visuals here, see what we got over the next couple days. Looking at 120 mile per hour sustained winds here. That's pretty decent. It is expected to weaken here. I want to bring up the weather model. Shows some of the activity out there in the Pacific, which is roughly about here. A couple different tropical systems here approaching Hawaii, which is right about here. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's a little small. Let me see if I can bring this up here just a little bit. Right about here. A couple different tropical systems here. We are watching the Hawaiian Islands because there is potential for some of these to maybe make it towards that area of Hawaii, the Big Island. Close call there with this area. And then following that, we got a couple more tropical systems that are lining up towards that area. But as we're getting towards fall here in the northern hemisphere, the patterns start to change out here. A lot of pressure differences going on across various areas. We'll have to watch. But for now, the hurricane activity out there in Hawaii, let's go to the Hurricane Center and see what we got. There's Gilma, a little tropical storm Hone, or Hone. Hone, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly. But it does look like there's some tropical storm watches up there for Hawaii right now, the Big Island right there, as a tropical storm. Southern end looks to be maybe getting somewhat of a hit from it, but this is a cone of uncertainty, so it actually could extend further south of here. But not a big deal, but a little bit of tropical excitement out there in the Big Island. All right, let's see what else we got here. Anything major going on? What do we got? I don't want to speak things into existence, folks, but it looks like we got an earthquake coming in Southern California. Barrett and also Bakersfield picking up an earthquake signal at the same time. So that means I got to stick around here. I was going to cut the update short, but let's see what we got here for California. Something coming into California right now. Stand by. Something coming in here. Hello from Bakersfield, Mama AA. Timothy, thanks for checking in. Susan, and a few other folks in there as well. But yeah, I'm just kind of watching this, seeing what's going on there in California right now. Let's see what this signal looks like. Well, that's funny. It's not really a big earthquake, but it shows the subsequent movement at the same time. And I've been talking about this at numerous videos, how we're seeing earthquake activity here in Southern California hit a couple different areas at the same time. Bakersfield, obviously a long ways away from Barrett. So Bakersfield right about here. The Barrett station is way down here, south, near San Diego, east of San Diego. So this goes to show you that there's some adjustment going on there at the same time. I thought this was going to be a big earthquake because we normally don't see an earthquake there at the same time across a couple different stations there. But goodness, yeah, popping up there. So keep an eye there on Southern California. Nothing showing up here following these couple spikes there at these two locations, but we'll continue to keep an eye on various areas out here. Getting active on this planet. Be prepared. We'll catch you guys back out here for tomorrow. You guys know what tomorrow it is? It's Monday. Wait a minute. Tomorrow's Friday. Yay. Friday is upon us, folks. Got some cooler weather coming into California, so I'm going to, I don't know, I barbecued tonight, but maybe I'll just barbecue again tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I love barbecuing in the cooler weather. Got a little bit of rain in the forecast. Temperatures in the 70s. Yes. Thank you very much. Have a good night, folks. Stay safe out there.